This will happen 2 takes, even 3 takes. This went on for so long. We were shooting on location. This was going on for so long that people called back to the studio and said, hey, you might want to come down and check this out. And people got in their cars from the production office and drove to set to watch me unravel. Really. And it culminated in this one horrific moment that's now captured forever on the gag reel, where I said, if they had told me in acting school, or no, I said if they had told me this in drama school, and the truth is I didn't go to drama school, but now it looks like I did, and also Jared and Jensen immediately then poke their heads in front of the camera and say, ha, he went to drama school. It was so bad. This will just give you a barometer of how awful it had gotten. It was so bad.
How bad was it?
The next day, Jensen came up to me and apologized. Earnestly. He's like, sorry about yesterday. Because I'm still laughing, but I'm also crying. It was like that weird. It's very frustrating. Even worse, that day got even worse because I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna put them then if they're gonna do this. And I made a paper airplane that I threw at them during their coverage. And I have a good arm. I can throw well. And my paper airplane just went right in front of, it made it 4 feet in front of me and nosedived into the concrete, and they were just looking at me like they were still doing their dialogue. They were not smiling, and they were looking at me like, you loser. Their inner dialogue during that scene that was filmed, it looks like they're thinking like something cold and calculating, but they're really thinking is, wow, what a loser. It was a very frustrating day that day. There are other days like that though that I remember. It was in season. That we. It was the episode. The one where. Oh yes, the one where. It was the Valentine's Day. My
Bloody Valentine.
My Bloody Valentine. Which is it? So My Bloody Valentine, which is in season 10, and the we were in the autopsy room, and there's some organs and a heart on the table, I remember, and I had a little bit of dialogue that I delivered over here, and then I came up to the table and I delivered more, and Jared had a broom handle under the table in my crotch. That sucked. I've told that story too many times. How many people have heard me tell that story? Half the audience. I'm not going to tell it again. Anyway, it ended with Jensen co-sabotaging my experience. It's a hostile work environment. Hi.
Hi, Misha. My name is Kelly. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So I met you earlier at the photo op, and I showed you my tattoo.
Yes, you did.
Of Castiel saving Dean from hell.
Yes.
And it's a half sleeve, and I just finished it just for this con to show you guys. It's my first con. I just wanted to know what you thought of it.
I think. What if I was like, eh?
Then I would be pissed.
Can you imagine?
You better like it.
Look, I have this tattoo. It's got you. It's covering my whole body. What do you think? I think it's amazing. It's awesome. It's awesome, of course. It's really cool and very well done. And it looks like it hurt like hell.
Oh, it's in my last session was 10 hours, and I was crying through the end of it.
10 hours?
10 hours, and I put on Supernatural and watched it, and it calmed me down, and I sat through it, and I finished it.
Does that form... Does that form negative associations, though? Like now when you watch Supernatural, you're going to associate it with what is essentially a form of torture. And you could potentially get PTSD from just turning on Supernatural.
No, not at all, because I like it a little rough.
Oh, okay, great. Got it. Right.
Hi.
Hi.
I was just wondering because when you started talking about scab, I looked into it and it was really interesting. And last year I actually was in Chicago for Judgment Day, so I went and checked it out. And it was really cool, and I was wondering if you would share some experiences that you had doing scab.
Scab is the University of Chicago scavenger hunt, but you are not a student.
No,
Okay.
I wish.
That's where I was introduced to scavenger hunts, and certainly I think part of it's certainly the original germ of inspiration for Gishwas was from Scab. Scab was awesome. Scab was a 4-day long scavenger hunt at the university, or 3 or 4 days. I can't remember. But it was like the highlight of our calendar year every year. And people would it was a scavenger hunt that was very similar to Gishwas in that it was really balls out and everybody had to do really hard things. I remember one year one of the items was you had to get in my country, that's considered rude. Where are you going? To the bathroom? Oh, you don't have to. You can. I have a cup. All right, fine. You have a trench coat too. You could just let it out on the seat and nobody would notice. So. One year, one of the items was you had to get 30 parking tickets, all for one vehicle. So it all had to have the same license plate number on it. And my good friend supplied 3 teams with parking tickets because he had a whole ream of them. He had 90-something unpaid parking tickets from the city of Chicago. Because apparently he had plates from out of state, and Chicago at that time did not have a way to deal with that, so they didn't they never caught up to him. That was pretty great. Another item was a tow truck towing another tow truck, which was something that I think plagiarized later. And then there was an item that was 3 live sheep, and so my wife came into my room because I was one of the few people on campus that had a car. I always wanted my freedom, so I had this really crappy 30-year-old Volvo, and she said, "Hey, can I borrow the keys to your car?" And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Well, I found some sheep up in Wisconsin." And she was on a different, she was on a different team. So I was like, "Fuck no." And get out of my room. And then I fell asleep, and she stayed up and stole my keys. And went to Wisconsin and got 3 live sheep from this farm, and then brought them back down. And the way scab works is there's a certain time when there's judgment. Like everybody has to bring the items that they have scavenged to one location, physical location at a certain time. And the sheep had been acquired early, like they were acquired overnight, and so they were there very early in the morning, and there was enough time before judging for another team to steal the sheep. So the sheep were stolen out of my car by a 3rd team, and then my wife went up again, got another load of sheep. And she was like the sort of core of her team. Another item that year was a Hooters waitress that you had to bring to the judging, and none of the Hooters waitresses at the Hooters in town wanted to do it, so she got a job at Hooters. And owing largely to her tenacity, her team won that year, and there was a pot of money that they got, which they had to give to me to reupholster my car. Because the seats, what hadn't been eaten on the seats, like literally ate the upholstery, but they just ground their feces and urine into the cloth fabric of my seats. The smell never got out of the car. And there was not even, at no point did anyone like lay down newspaper. This was college. This is what